Welcome back to Resilience Builds. My name is Jake, and today we are starting to take apart this old Dodge Conquest TSI.
Today we're going from this over to this. First thing we're going to want to do is drain all the fluids, starting with the engine oil. Something that helps to get the flow going is to remove the filler cap. Next up, we have the manual transmission. We're going to want to remove the filler bolt and then open up the drain bolt. In the case of this Conquest, we have this skid plate with four 13mm bolts holding it in place. Removing this is going to allow us to get to the lower end of the radiator. Same idea here, you want to open up the radiator cap to improve flow, and then in my case, this radiator has a petcock that allowed me to open it up and drain it while I continued to work on top of the engine and started to remove the intake pipe. So what you're seeing me tackle first is this up pipe coming from the intercooler over to the throttle body. Almost all this intake piping is being held in by old clamps, so it just took a lot of PB blaster, wiggling around, and some work from my screwdriver in order to take these parts out. I'm going to be keeping a lot of these stock parts for just in case scenarios, but I use a liberal amount of PB blaster in order to get a lot of these original old 30-year-old parts out. So what I'm taking out next is this intake box, and this thing was actually fairly difficult to take out. It's got 3 bolts holding it in place, and there's just one that's difficult to get at from under the air box. But this also, when originally connected, holds the MAF. So when I had taken off the intake, I carefully took out the MAF that you saw there earlier, but what you're seeing me fiddle around now with is just trying to get access under that intake box, which is also being connected to a bunch of different vacuum hoses that go to like a charcoal box under there that also connects to the engine. So as you're taking this out, just be careful wiggling it around and disconnect those vacuum hoses. Next on the agenda was some of the intake piping that bolts up to that front cross member. And they're pretty small, about 1 3/4 inch diameter intake piping, so not huge, but again, I'm going to keep a lot of these OEM parts. They're getting difficult to find, and these are all being held in place by 13mm bolts, again, that attach to that front cross member. They are a little tricky, especially when they're all connected up to the intercooler, which in my case, that thing's been sitting there probably since it came off the factory, and those fittings and clamps holding on the silicon between the intake pipes were old, and again, liberal use of some PB blaster. Last on the agenda was removing the radiator. Now, the radiator was actually really easy to get out. All you have to do is disconnect 2 wiring connectors that go to the fans. Then there's just 2 bolts that hold the radiator to the front cross member there. And then the bottom actually slides in like a cartridge and has a little nice rubber isolator so it's not wiggling around in there, and you just pull it out as one big unit. Just remember to take off that upper coolant line that goes to the motor, and you're good to go.
If you want to continue to watch future episodes, make sure to like and subscribe.